He worked for 31 years as a public school teacher in a small town in rural Ohio. He never cut corners. He never asked for favors. Every month, after paying the bills and feeding his kids, he saved whatever was left. Sometimes it was $40. Sometimes it was nothing. But Robert was patient because his father had told him something once that he never forgot. He said, "Son, an honest man moves slowly, but he always arrives." 31 years later, Robert arrived. He had saved enough to buy a small plot of land on the edge of town, half an acre, quiet street, clean air. His kids could finally have space to breathe. He went to a local property broker, a man named Craig Whitfield. Sharp suit, confident handshake, framed licenses on the wall. The kind of man who makes you feel like you are in safe hands. Craig showed him the lot. Robert walked every corner of it. He stood in the center and closed his eyes. He could already see the house, the kitchen where his wife would cook Sunday breakfast, the small backyard garden his youngest daughter had been asking for since she was 6 years old. He signed the papers that same afternoon. He paid every dollar in cash, $114,000, his entire life savings. He drove home and told his wife. She put her hand over her mouth and cried. His kids ran around the living room. That night, they ordered pizza and ate like they hadn't celebrated in years. With joy, with relief, with hope. That was a Tuesday. By Friday, everything was gone. A neighbor came to Robert's door that Friday morning, an elderly woman. She looked uncomfortable. She said, "I think you need to come see something." She took Robert to the lot. There was already a construction crew on the property. Robert stood there confused. He thought there was a mistake. He called Craig Whitfield. No answer. He called again. The number was disconnected. He drove to the broker's office. The door was locked. The sign was gone. The neighboring businesses, said Craig, had not been seen since Wednesday morning. Robert went to the county recorder's office with his paperwork. He handed the documents to the clerk. She looked at them, then looked at Robert, then looked at the documents again. She said, "Sir, I am so sorry. These are not registered with this county. The deed stamp, the notary seal, the parcel identification number, all of it forged. The real owner of the lot was a property developer based in Chicago. The land had never been listed for sale. Craig Whitfield had sold the same lot to 2 other families as well. Robert's 31 years of savings, gone in 4 days. He sat in the parking lot of that county building in his truck, a 63-year-old man, and he wept like he hadn't wept since his mother died. Most people in Robert's position give up at this point because the system makes it very easy to give up. The police treat it as a civil matter. The civil attorneys want a retainer he cannot afford. The courts are backed up 18 months. The real property developer wants nothing to do with the fraud. And Craig Whitfield is already 2 states away doing the same thing to another family. Robert had no money left. He had no lawyer. He had no connections. But he had one thing. He had a former student. 23 years ago, Robert had taught a quiet kid named Daniel in 7th grade English in that same small Ohio town. Daniel was brilliant but invisible. His mother worked double shifts at a diner. His father was not in the picture. The family was about to be evicted when Daniel's school fees and supply costs were piling up. Robert paid them quietly, out of his own pocket, for 2 full school years. He never told the principal. He never told Daniel's mother. He did it because a child should not be punished for circumstances he did not choose. Daniel grew up. He got a full scholarship. He studied law. He became a real estate attorney in Columbus, one of the sharpest in the state. He had thought about his old teacher many times over the years, but lost touch. A mutual friend made a phone call. 48 hours after Robert sat weeping in that parking lot, Daniel was sitting across from him at a diner booth. He listened to the whole story without interrupting once. He sat quietly for a long moment. Then he said, "You paid for my future when you had nothing left over. Now I am going to fight for yours, and I will not charge you a single dollar." What followed was 16 months of one of the most complex real estate fraud cases that county had ever prosecuted. Daniel discovered that Craig Whitfield had done this 9 times before across 4 states. 9 families, 9 life savings, All gone. He had a network, a corrupt notary public who stamped fraudulent deeds, a document printer who replicated county seals, and a contact inside a title company who ran interference. When victims started asking questions, Daniel filed a federal wire fraud complaint. Bypassing the local police entirely, he compiled evidence from all 9 cases into a single federal filing. He named the notary. He named the title company contact. He presented financial records showing how the money was moved across state lines. The federal judge assigned to the case had one reputation above everything else. She did not tolerate predatory fraud against working families. She issued asset freeze orders within 72 hours. She referred the notary for a criminal investigation. She ordered the title company to cooperate fully or face obstruction charges. Within 8 weeks, Craig Whitfield was arrested in Arizona. Within 5 months, the federal court ruled that Robert's payment was documented, witnessed, and the fraud was conclusively proven. Within 16 months, the lot was legally transferred into Robert's name. The Chicago developer, embarrassed by the association with the fraud and moved by the story that had by then been covered by local news, sold Robert the lot at the exact price he had originally paid, because it was the right thing to do. Robert broke ground on a cold morning in early March. State. His wife stood next to him holding the first beam. His youngest daughter planted a small rose bush in the corner where the garden would be. His former student Daniel stood quietly at the edge of the lot, watching. Robert walked to the center of the property, the exact spot where 2 years earlier he had closed his eyes and imagined the kitchen and the backyard and the Sunday breakfast. He closed his eyes again. This time it was real. 31 years of honest work, almost stolen in 4 days. But here is what the fraudsters never understand. They can steal your money. They can forge your documents. They can disconnect their phones and vanish to the next state. But they cannot steal what you build inside other people. Robert never told a single person about those school fees he paid for Daniel. He did it because it was right. Because a child should not be invisible just because his mother works double shifts and his father never came home. That one quiet act of honesty, done in secret, done with sacrifice, done with absolutely nothing to gain, came back 23 years later and gave him everything. Napoleon Hill wrote that every adversity carries within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Robert found his seed on a cold March morning, with his wife beside him and his daughter's rose bush in a corner of the garden she had been asking for since she was 6 years old. This is not just Robert's story. This is a story of every honest person who was ever told that being good does not pay. It pays. It just sometimes takes 23 years. If someone in your life is fighting for what is rightfully theirs, share this with them today and follow this channel. Because every week we tell the stories they never put in headlines.